Okay. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our April 2025 update, and thank you for joining us today. Before we kick off, just some housekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please drop them in the question box as outlined in the short video you've just seen, and we will endeavour to answer them on air if possible. We will also follow up with an email response. Now, if you've been to our sessions previously, you'll know that we try to make our webinars as audience interactive as possible. So there'll be no surprise to see that we have included some polls to gain some insight into how your business is run and to keep you on your toes. So if you miss any of the presentation for any reason, don't fret. A recording of the webinar will be made available in the following days, so be sure to look out for it via email. We also have them stored on our SuperMate's YouTube channel. Most of you know me, but for those that don't, my name is Peter Mellor and I'm a software support analyst for SuperMate. As usual, our product design manager, Reese Hopper, will be providing an update on SuperMate capabilities. Unfortunately, we don't have any special guest presenters today. It's just going to be us. So to get things rolling, we have our first poll right off the bat. Would you be interested in assistance with tailoring your report suites and letter templates? So if you could respond to that poll with the responses, either yes, absolutely, maybe, or no, not needed. We already have that under control. So wait for these polls to come through. A few, most are thinking maybe. A couple that are absolutely. Let's wait for a few more time just to respond. Okay. Cool. Thank you very much for responding to that. We appreciate your participation. So now as we kick off, I'd like to welcome Reese to provide a demonstration on using SuperMate as an enterprise solution and to provide an update on the recent compliance release. So over to you, Reese.
Thank you, Peter. Share my screen. Yep. Yeah, so today I'll be presenting on the SuperMate's enterprise solution and how we've integrated the workflows, documents, and queries features together, and the April 2025 release. You've probably seen this slide before. It's SuperMate's key features and how we aim to provide SuperMate as an enterprise solution. You can see there we have a lot of features that are about automation, speeding up processing, but there are some features here. For example, the client view queries, customized reports, workflows, that they do speed up the end-to-end operation of getting a set of accounts out, but they're not so much to do with automating processing. For example, client view and queries, we have the query feature, which can be used to enhance the ability to raise queries and then get responses back. I found back when I was processing funds that sometimes the biggest delay of completing a set of accounts is getting a response from the client. So we have the queries, we have the reports, and we also have documents which link into it. So the main part of the enterprise solution portion of the demo, I do want to talk about queries, workflows, and documents and how they all link together. So from previous webinars, you would have seen me advertising queries, how we have automatic alerts where based on certain events occurring, SuperMate can actually notify or send an alert in the form of a query to a client to tell them maybe they've exceeded their contribution caps or they've got a term deposit coming up for maturity. We've included query templates. So when raising queries, if you have a certain type of query, It can be templated. Based on that template, it just means that all the queries that everyone is raising across your firm about a certain subject, it's being raised in the same format. It also speeds it up because you can integrate letter tokens into the query template. So when you are adding the query template to the query, it'll grab through data automatically for you. Clients can raise queries. So it's a two-way dialogue. It's not just the accountant raising queries to the client. It's the client raising queries back. And when I say that, we have clients are trustees, or if you give an advisor access through client view and you've linked it up, so as I showed in last webinar, the advisor can raise queries back, can raise queries. And that way, when they raise queries, you can respond to it, or they could use the query system to provide you documentation. The other item I'm going to show today is just being able to link a query to a workflow. With workflows, mentioned before, guided workflows, you can set up and customize multiple workflows to train new staff, to create a consistent processing methodology across your firm. Well, also from a management point of view, you can create certain workflows, then you can track how that type of work is progressing through. So end of year is an obvious one, new business workflows, pension commencement workflows, activity statement workflows. As a manager, you can log in and go, okay, well, where's all my end of year up to based on the workflows, activity statements, where they're up to based on the workflows. I'll be showing off how to link queries to workflows. Looking at workflow queues and workflow management, I've just mentioned that before. Then lastly, documents. With documents, I'll be showing off how you can launch a workflow from a document. You can check for outstanding queries. You can link an account or a member to a document. You can link an outstanding query to a document. And we have an advanced search feature for documents. And during this next section, I'll be showing just how they all integrate together and highlight that with the flow of information, that a document will come in, say by a trustee raising as a query, that document will end up in the DMS. From that document sitting in the DMS, you can check outstanding queries or check to see if there's any workflows, check, or you can commence a workflow, and then that work goes to an accountant to process the document or process or action what that document contains. All right, let's go to SuperMate. So first of all, queries. If I jump into the queries section, I can see here that this query here, NAB, does relate to the end of year close automated one. Now to link a query to a workflow, it's fairly simple. I'll navigate to the fund. So say if I am working on this fund, I'm trying to complete the 2024. I can see I've got a buy BHP transaction. I might be wanting contract notes. I can easily raise a transaction query for this. Also, if I have the end of year workflow open, when I raise a query, since I have the workflow open, it provides me the option to link it to that workflow. So say if I was on the end of year, I could create a query, link it to the end of year workflow. If I was commencing a pension and I had some queries where I had to reconcile a fund before commencing the pension, and I wanted these queries answered before I commence the pension, I can open up the query, the pension workflow that I've been working off, and also raise the query. This is the template section I was talking about, where I can type in bank statements. It'll provide a template. I could set up tokens here, which will pull through names and bank accounts and dates. That's basically how you link a query to a workflow. With workflows, jumping into the queues section, this is where the workflows are. This is where all the outstanding workflows are, tasks, queues are. If a workflow was commenced from a document, when I do open it up, I should be able to see a document tag here, and we could try and show that off a bit later. And that's kind of just trying to highlight how it's all linked together. The last item, the documents section, I can see here I've got a document that I've received. I go to a document queue where unindexed documents sit. I can select edit. And I can see that once the screen loads it, it's going to be a NAB bank statement. Before trying to index it all, I could always see that I have open queries for the fund. I can see that this relates to the NAB bank account. So I can go select, yep, this is a NAB bank account. I'm going to match to this query. I can also, if I want, update, well, when I index this, so you can see now that it is linked to a query. I can also, when I'm indexing it, if I know that this bank statement has unprocessed transactions, I could allocate it to a workflow. I can also just send it to Data Hero, which will go off and it'll automatically identify the document and try and categorize it for me, and extract the bank transactions for me. So you see here, it's automatically said, yeah, it's a bank statement. It's picking up the document date range currently from the date it was uploaded. But it should be, we have an enhancement coming where it's going to identify the range of the bank statement. Yeah, so I can link a document to a financial year. I can link it to an account, cash bank, a member, and then I can select a workflow. So if I want the accountants to go away and reconcile this bank statement using a reconcile workflow, when I select save, it'll actually create a workflow for it. Now, if I jump back into the query screen, I can view the query. I can see that I have attached the bank statement myself to the query. So if anyone was looking at this, they go, oh, okay, I've got the bank statement. I can now mark this query is completed. This The other item I was going to show off that we're about to release is the advanced search section of the document screen. So when looking for documents, we have simple category type items. So I could go, I want to look at all my investment documents for last financial year. When I select search, it's going to bring it up. So it's brought the bank statement up that I indexed. I can also do an advanced search where I can check to see when documents are uploaded. So if I'm trying to find a document, I know it was uploaded last week, I can use the uploaded date range. I can search on the description column. I can search by account. I can search by member. And also if the document went in through using Data Hero, I can actually use text search and it'll search the text of that document. So that NAB bank account, if I knew there was a certain set of words on that statement, I'm trying to find it, I can use the text search to locate it. This is quite handy where, say, someone has indexed it incorrectly, where I would have used in the past, for example, is if I am missing a rental statement and I know based on the rental statement that, or the other monthly rental statements, that there is an account code on that rental statement, I could search using that text. I could put the account number in, select search, and then it'll bring up all the possible statements that have that, or it brings up all statements that has that text in it. That'll make it easier for me to find a document if it was indexed incorrectly. So say if that rental statement was indexed as a bank statement for some weird reason, it happens, human error, the text search can be used to help identify it. So based on what I've shown you there, you can see that if a person uploads a document while indexing it, I can attach it to a query, outstanding query, I can launch a workflow. From a workflow point of view, when someone does get that workflow, I can okay. I can't see where that workflow's gone, but if I was to open up the workflow, I'd be able to see the document that it is linked to. Then also from the query section, if I was, hooked to the client over the phone, I could see a bunch of queries and I can see the linked workflow. So it can give me an idea what they relate to. I could say, yeah, I can see you have 10 queries, and since they're linked to the end of year workflow, these are the 10 queries that relate to me, stopping me from close the end of year. If there's other queries relating to different workflows, maybe I could deprioritize them in the conversation. So say if I see a 2025 April monthly reconciliation workflow, I might, while I'm on the phone, I might mention it, but what I would do is hone on, okay, you have all these queries here and they're stopping the end of year. That's end of year set of accounts from progressing. Okay. Next item I'm going to chat about is the April 2025 release. Now, all these items I am going to show you. If you're opening up SuperMate right now, you won't be able to see any of them. And that's because the release is happening this afternoon. But I'll give you a sneak peek right now. Have a look. You can see some of the exciting things that are coming. This is the top 6 that I want to show on screen, but I will be showing a few more as I go through the webinar. I've purposely put this one second because I have quite a bit, and I'll try to keep going until I run out of time. The first item here, processing unitized investments up to 10 decimal places. Right now, in SuperMate, we do restrict the number of units that people can process on based on the investment type. It's as different investing abilities are rising in the world, we've realized that restricting the number of decimal places for unitized assets, it's a bit restrictive and it's not quite working. For example, there's some brokers out there that do allow shares to be purchased up to 10 decimal places or 8 decimal places. Crypto, you can purchase up to 10 decimal places. So what we've done, and we're going to release today, is that if I was processing this purchase of BHP, if I'm purchasing this BHP, then I could say, I'm purchasing 400,000 units. It's quite a lot for 60 grand. 4 units. But if I was purchasing marginal amounts, I can enter up to 10 decimal places to execute this purchase of BHP. Then when I go to the asset overview, we've updated the screen to accommodate multiple units. So say if you go to the 10 decimal places, I believe before it was only cryptocurrency that we showed more than 4 decimal places. I believe that we showed 4 decimal places for trusts and maybe shares, but now it'll go up to 10 decimal places. Then when running reports, there are certain reports where now, the multiple decimal places do show up on those reports. And it's not on all reports. It's just the reports that make sense. So obviously, when you're running a registry reconciliation report or a holding reconciliation report, it will have all the units because we are reconciling the number of units. So if ComSec or one of the registries say, or one of the platforms, one of the wraps says that there's 10 decimal places, and there's a discrepancy, we want to show what that discrepancy is up until the 10th decimal place. But there are other reports where, it kind of makes sense that, well, it doesn't make sense to go all the way to 10 decimal places because you're really just concerned about, or you're providing data to, say, 2 to 4 decimal places. The next item, new report suite conditions and ladder tokens. I've spoken before about how we have conditional inclusion of reports and letters being generated. We now have the ability to generate report suites based on the entity type. And what I mean by this is if I was to generate a report for this fund, I could say I want to do the consolidated member statement report. Then I can either generate the report for the fund and then receive all the consolidated member statements for all the funds, or I could do it for a member, all members, or I could select a member or a certain member account. And where these different definitions can work is, so say if I'm just doing a quarterly investment report suite, I do that on a fund level because it relates to the entire fund. If there's certain report suites I want to provide to a member, so for example, say if a member if you have 4 members in a fund and you just want to generate a report suite to go, okay, here's some information about the fund, but then here's the member statements that relate to certain members, and only certain members receive those documents. This is where the generate for member level. And then the member account one, this one can be used, say if you had a pension commencement and you had a report suite that had multiple letters in it, you could say, okay, I want to generate this pension commencement report suite for this member, and it could contain, say, providing draft trial close reports would probably be a bit excessive, but you could include, say, the investment summary, statement of financial position, member statements, just to show what the member account balances were on that date. And then you could also include all the pension commencement documentation, the minutes, and the resolutions and letters that relate to commencing a pension. And that way, by generating it for a member account, you're defining those letters and those reports that only relate to that member, or in effect, that event. Once those report suites have been generated, then you probably looked at the history tab, and one of the deficiencies before this release was that this history tab generally just showed, I believe, date, status of that of the report that's being generated. Now that we have included description, we've included time, it's provided more detail, so it's a lot easier that you can find report suites that were generated for that fund. Also, if you have a workflow that processes that had that automatic processes in it, so a pension commencement workflow where it takes you through reconciling the fund, commencing the pension, and then once the pension's once the pensions commence, it could automatically generate all the minutes and the reports, etc. And then tell the user, okay, we finished generating the report. When you jump into the history tab, it is a lot easier to find the reports that were generated automatically. Especially when you're talking about the workflow automatically generating it, then the next day you jump in to start your work over again, and you can see, okay, the step I'm up to is grab the report suite. So you can go to the history tab. Other changes we've done with the report suites, I mentioned conditional letters. We have, when customizing a report suite, we have added the ability to select client level letters. So before, client level letters weren't allowed in report suites. We've allowed that. For pension letters, we have allowed a new condition, which would be all the pensions that commence on an effective date. How this one works is, if you could create a report suite that's where and using the example I had previously, where someone is commencing a pension and sending the pension documents, you could say, hey, only include these pension commencement letters if for pensions that will commence on that effective date. And that workflow, when commencing the workflow and you do set the effective date as the date you want to commence the pension, when generating the report suite, it'll go, okay, I'm going to generate this minute for this pension that was commenced on the effective date of the workflow. How this is helpful is, say if you do have a member or a fund that has multiple pensions that were commenced during the year, by using this condition, it only generates the minute on the effective date. So you can have multiple pensions commenced for the member prior to this date, and it's only going to generate the letter for the pension that you commenced on that effective date, or if it was automatically created on the workflow's effective date. We've also added a conditional inclusion for lump sums. So once again, or benefit payments on the effective date. So similar concept. If you're doing a lump sum, you can generate a report suite for lump sums created on a certain date. And while we're here, I did notice that another item is that we've included the PAYG payment summary report to report suites. Previously, we didn't include the PAYG payment summary report to be allowed into report suites. We've had a few requests to be able to put it in, so we've enabled it. We've released quite a few letter tokens, and we've created a few more, which we'll be releasing today. So you can see right now we're up to 796 letter tokens. Few that we are releasing today, or these ones actually might be already released. The ones where you can set a letter token for new members, new directors, new trustees. Where this one is handy is, say if you have a letter or a minute for when you're bringing new members in, you can use this. Say if the member joined on the 29th of April 2025, you can use these letter tokens to identify whether there are any members that did join. You can say here are all the members that did join on this document date. You can also check to see if there's individual trustees or directors that were added to the effective date, and include, okay, here's the new trustees, here's the new directors. We've included a new investment strategy, effective date 1. So when producing a investment strategy that maybe you've got customized one that you've set up as a letter template, you can now include the effective date of the investment strategy. Also, we've brought in the funds investment strategy asset allocation all. Previously, we had one where it showed a table where it included the investment strategies, minimum, maximum benchmarks, actual holdings, whether it's in range or not, in a table, and it would only include asset allocation categories that had a balance or had a min max or a benchmark. We've received feedback that, hey, when we're doing our investment strategies and creating them in Word, that we do want to show other asset allocation categories that are all 0. So say if I had crypto as min max was 0, benchmark 0, current holding 0, I want to show that based on the investment strategy, that cryptocurrency has not been catered for. And then the last one here, we have the trustee list table. So where you can put in a token that'll list all the trustees. It'll include that their names. Believe there's quite a few details that it'll include for each trustee. We've added date of birth to this token. So now when you are listing the trustees, say if a member has the exact same name as another person, father, son, daughter, mother combo, you can have the date of birth in there to differentiate which member it is. Or say if the person is not a member or that person's not a member or trustee of the fund, where when you're looking at legal documentation, you can say, okay, well, the trustees were this person and this is their date of birth. So it excludes the person that's not in the super fund. Default relationships, we've done some enhancements on. Oh, sorry, before I jump onto default relationships, I did have a slide which did highlight the letter generation hierarchy with the report suites. Going back to report suite generation, this highlights that the top table is the letter entity. So if I have a letter template that relates to a pension or a client, that's the top. Report suite entity is here on the left. And it's this table here just shows off how the letters will be generated based on the report suite entity that it's been created for. So for example, if I was to generate a report suite on a fund level and it contained trustee entity letters, it'll generate a letter for each trustee or director. It's probably actually a bad example because the trustee is all the same here, but okay, let's look at pension. So if I generate for a fund and I got a pension letter, it'll generate the pension letter for every member, every individual. If I do it based on, if I generate the report suite based on client level or person, it will only include the pension letters for that member. But if I generate it based on a member account, it'll only produce pension letters for that member account. So not the individual, but the actual pension account itself. So this is a bit of a hierarchy that I was going to show off. The next item, default relationships. This features already existed, but we have expanded on it. So under settings, identities, we do have a default relationship tab where you can set the default relationships for funds. How it works is with the relationship types that you can see on the screen, whenever a new fund is created, these relationship types will automatically get set. So it's really handy where you can say, okay, my tax agent for my site is this, the administrator, the contact, the accountant is all this. So every time a fund is created, they get automatically added to the fund and I don't have to go and manually add that relationship. We've also included ASIC agent. So if you have an ASIC agent, you can set that automatically. When adding a default relationship, so you can delete default relationships or edit them. When you do add one for the first time, you can choose, okay, going forward, this is the default relationship, or I want to add this to all existing funds. So say if you don't have the ASIC agent relationship set for all your funds and you think, actually, I want to do that because there's letters, there's tokens, there's workflow items that I can use to enhance my processing, enhance the way that people work. I'm going to add this ASIC agent to all my funds. And then it existing there, it'll whenever you add a new fund, it'll also add this relationship. For relationships that default relationships already exist, so say if you have a tax agent that did leave, going forward, you want to change who the tax agent is. You can change the tax agent, and you can say, okay, well, say if you have a new tax agent, you could go, going forward, all new funds go to this tax agent, or I could add it to all funds. I'm going to change this to understandably, or I could change it to say, this is the tax agent, and the previous default tax agent I had was AusKey test tax agent. I'm switching all of this person's funds to the Adam family tax agent. So it's quite handy, a way to bulk change relationships and also automatically set relationships when they get created. Well, when a fund gets created. Next feature that's going to get released is the enhanced fund search. We have got a lot of feedback that Classic does have this great feature where you can easily find funds, where some people using web saying, I need to find a fund and I don't know its name, but I know the member, or based on the document, I can see the fund's ABN or trustee. So say if you got a rates notice, sometimes rates notice only says the trustee's name, and when you're looking after 1,000 funds, you don't know every trustee off the top of your head that relates to which fund, especially if it's a corporate trustee. So we do have this advanced search option coming where you can search based on trustees, includes security trustees. So yeah, once again, if you have a bare trust and you set up if a fund has a bare trust and you set up the security trustee relationship with the fund, and you get a document that goes, say from ASIC, and you have a ASIC statement that says this is the company, and it doesn't say obviously it doesn't say what fund it relates to. You can search here, ABNs, ACNs. You can also search for deactivated funds in this screen. All right. So for example, if I searched Hopper, you can see all my test funds. We have the ABN column here now. If I select fund details, I can see who the member is, the ABN, the fund status, whether it's a pension fund, who the owner is, if there was CSM or fund accountants attached to the fund, I can see that. You can search on it, addresses to say if it is a rates notice, and you saw the address that it was posted to, and a client has sent it in, and you're like, well, what fund does this relate to? You can search the address of the fund in the advanced fund search to locate which fund it relates to. And then once you locate the fund, you can select view fund to open up the fund. Next item, we have increased the fund statuses. Prior, we did restrict the fund statuses to current administration wound up, I believe. Let me open up the Hoop Super Fund. We've expanded it to onboarding and winding up. And you might notice that we also put the fund status against the fund as a badge. So when you are searching it, you can go, okay, yeah, these are my onboarding funds. These are my winding up funds. So under fund status now, we do have onboarding, leaving, winding up, wound up, current administration. So you can use that to highlight where they are up to in the life of a fund. So yeah, you can use it to identify all your funds that are still onboarding, where the onboarding hasn't finished yet. I have another one here where the Hopper Investments Retirement Fund is still winding up. And you might notice that when it does say winding up, we do have a note to say, hey, this fund has been set to wind up, just to give a heads up to people who are working on the fund that this fund is winding up. If there's any processes or any considerations you normally have for a winding up fund, we're bringing that to your attention. And the reason why we separated the concept of winding up and wound up is that we found that we receive feedback where if a fund is winding up, they might have flagged their intention to wind up, but they haven't completed all the activities yet to enable a fund to be wound up. For example, they might not have sold their assets. They might have frozen assets, which they need to move into their personal names, purchase from the fund, etc. Still need to wait for term deposits to expire. So you have the winding up status. Once, and some of those processes we found can take time. And with the wound up status, when you change to wound up, we do require you to put in a wind up date. So say if someone's flagged an intention to wind up, you can't put a wound up date in because you don't know when all those activities are going to be achieved by. Putting as winding up gives you that flexibility. You can close financial years with a winding up status. And then once you have rolled out the money and you know it's going to be wound up on a certain date, you can add in the wind up date. We've also added a bit more flexibility where you can say it's wound up and it was wound up to, you can say it's wound up today. We do have that restriction there where prior years must be closed, but we have loosened up when you can actually set that wound up date. Okay. Got a few workflow updates. These updates mainly relate to the milestones. So previous webinar, I showed that you can have workflows and you can have milestones that link to certain workflows. And it's not just end of year. You can have milestones for, say, commencing pensions or onboarding funds or processing rollovers. So you can have milestones so you can track it. With this one here, I'm more going to be discussing the end of year milestone. And you can see here the end of year status. I have 2024 trial closed. How I got the trial closed milestone, status here is that it's actually pulling the milestone. So if you have a fund with an active end of year workflow that has end of year milestones connected to that workflow, it will say where you're up to. So you can customize your statuses. Whereas if I jump into end of year for 2025, the end of year statuses, if it wasn't a workflow milestone, the end of year statuses would be, not started, work in progress, client signing, at audit, lodgement signing, etc. That's our standard one. So if you don't use workflows, you do have the ability to have standardized workflows, sorry, not workflow, standardized end of year statuses. With workflows, it gives you the ability to customize your own milestones. And then when you are looking at the fund overview, you can see the status based on that milestone. We also, in the end of year tracking screen, we've added a column for milestone, workflow milestone. So we have the column for workflow milestone and status. So if you are using workflow milestones, you can review where your funds are up based on the milestone, but you can also do it on status on a bulk level. So if I change that from fund to all, or use one of the filters to filter on, say, my funds, I could see the status, the milestone statuses. I can also search based on all the different milestones that I have. Another workflow item that we have brought out, are bringing out this afternoon is when you do have a workflow, you can add notes to the workflow, which people can jump in and edit, but then you can also add task comments, and then that comment will be linked to the specific task. And that way, when people are doing workflows that move from that has steps for a individual and then later on has steps for a different user, they can use the task comments to see a history of all the different comments, send messages to each other. So it's a bit of an internal messaging system that's attached to workflows. That's the first 6 items. Looks like I got 7 more minutes, so I'll just show off some really cool navigation items. I'll try and cover off in a couple of minutes, and then we'll chuck to questions. Okay, so the first one, navigation. Whenever there is a date range, we now include prior financial year. So we receive feedback, hey, when I'm looking at a fund or I'm reviewing a fund that's been closed, so say if I was reviewing 2023 financial year, I could now select 2023, select search. And this, the prior year functionality has been expanded to anywhere where there is a financial year date range drop down, so you can easily select financial years. We've received feedback that when in the transaction screen, when you do change tabs, say if I change this to 23 financial year, currently if I change to the reconciliation tab, it'll show the current financial year, so 2024. Now after this release, it will remember what that date range is when you navigate between tabs and screens. So I could go off, run a report, jump back, and it'll be 2020. It'll automatically bring up 2023. We've allowed opening of new tabs and opening new windows where from these items where previously you couldn't open up new windows, new tabs. It's quite handy if you want to look at the bank tab, but you want the reconciliation tab on a separate screen, so you can look at both screens at the same time. Contributions and pension screen, we receive feedback that in the contributions and pension screen, we had the financial year selector just above the contribution for each members tab, and then you can go, okay, well, look at the 25 contributions, that would remain as 24. So we have moved the financial year So you can so it changes for every member of that fund. I'm going to leave it there. I still had about 10 or 15 items that are pretty cool. I'll save them for the next webinar, but I'll pause now just to throw back to Peter and give time for any questions.
Thanks for that, Reese. My goodness, there is a lot of information and a lot of stuff, a lot of new stuff that you're putting out in that compliance release. So that's really awesome to see how much you're pushing out. That's fantastic. So we'll go on to our final poll. So the question is, how often do you discuss investment strategies within your SMSFs with your clients? So having a look at the investment strategies, does their investments fit within that strategy? Should they need to update it? Is it frequently? Is it occasionally, rarely, or do you never do it? So if you could respond to that as we're going through. Getting a few responses that seems to be either occasionally or never. Okay, so it looks like most of the responses have come through by now. So you should be able to see the results of that in the poll in the chat. So thank you very much for participating in that. So just want to remind you that there is a help portal available in SuperMate that is able to be accessed by clicking the question mark in the top right hand of your screen and then selecting the help portal to find answers for frequently asked questions, or even just to explore the capabilities in web. And as you can see, there's a lot more information coming out regularly. So Reese provided you a demonstration, quite a comprehensive demonstration on a lot of the functionality in SuperMate. And for those that are not already using SuperMate, I'm sure you're thinking, it's pretty awesome, but it's going to cost me a fair whack. You may be surprised to know that the basic subscription begins at $11 per fund per month plus GST, which gives you access to the Macquarie Bank data feed, broker data feeds, registry reconciliations with computer share, linked market services and boardroom, data hero to read bank statements and create bank transactions from them, property worksheets, workflows, standard letter templates, all of which reduce the manual intervention and hence the time that you need to provide outstanding service to your clients. Not only that, but for just an additional $4.75 a month, you can get all of this as well as data feeds from over 200 other banks and financial services institutions. In addition, once you subscribe to SuperMate, you become a part of the Super Concepts family and, as such, have access to our SMSF education services provided by Craig Stone, who has been a presenter in previous webinars. So now it's over to you. Is there anything you would like clarification on what has been discussed today? Remember to click the Q&A in the top of your Teams view to submit your questions. So at this stage, it looks like we don't have any questions that have come through. So we'll just wait to see if anything's come through. Nothing comes up, in which case we'll leave it at there. I'll let you get back to your afternoons. So thank you very much, Reese, for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
And don't forget, if you're interested or would like a demonstration that is more specific to the way that your business operates, please get in touch. Thank you very much.